Meeting to order, and, oh, you already did that. Flag salute. Oh, crap. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Ridgewood Board of Education has been meeting in executive session pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12. The minutes of this meeting will be released when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. So welcome to our August meeting, and we'll start with presentation and a resolution honoring Michelle Lenhard, who couldn't be here tonight, but we certainly did not want to not recognize Michelle for all of the service to the board and to the district over the last 8 years. Did you want to read it or?
No, I'll just touch on a few things. Michelle was deeply involved in her board service, and as a board member also was involved as the district representative to the New Jersey School Boards Committee on their legislative group, as well as a very active member in the Garden State Coalition of Schools. I know she loved her service, and I know, I loved having her as a board member. She was a great person to work with, and I know I'll miss her, and I'm sure you will all miss her.
Absolutely, yeah. She was great. I had the pleasure of working with her for the last 8 years, and dedicated is not even strong enough word. She was always professional in her board work, knowledgeable, dedicated, and kind and generous with her time. So she certainly will be missed. And I know that we all had an opportunity to work with her on various committees, yes. And she always really brought a lot of thought to her conversations.
Well researched.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, Michelle was president when I joined the board, and I will always be grateful to the way she reached out to make sure that my assumption of that position went as smoothly as possible. I was always impressed with Michelle's intellect and the strength of her will and convictions. I witnessed many occasions where she would single-handedly influence the rest of the board in the direction that she perceived through the strength of her arguments and the degree to which she understood the facts. She was a hugely valuable member to the school district, and I'm very grateful for her service as well.
Definitely hard to replace.
Mm-hmm.
She before she joined the board, spent a number of years on the Ridge Education Foundation and really delved into the issues, the supporting the school and how it could do things. Joining the board, she was unstinting in the time she gave to it. Those meetings that you referred to, Dan, are not nearby, and they required an awful lot of travel on weekends and strange hours of the day to go and keep us well informed. I fear we're not going to be as well informed about those other groups as without Michelle there, because she did a great service for us being our liaison. And she'll be sorely missed. Hopefully she'll enjoy Florida in August.
Right. Right. So she will be missed. We do wish her well, and as we've said, and I know that you've said to her, if she happens to be in Ridgewood and she'd like to come and visit, we would welcome her.
Yep.
To see her again. So, anyway, thank you for this lovely resolution.
I just passed something, Vince, if you want to take one.
Do we need to just vote on that?
Oh,
I
sure.
move the resolution.
Second.
Yes.
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 And
And,
then
We'll get
get
it.
it to her. and-
frame it up nicely and all that kind of good stuff.
Yep. Before you may have seen in the newspaper that the state released the evaluation data for 13-14. Okay, I printed it out as it was in the paper. our teachers. And we've talked about the mandates of the newer evaluation system, which we're starting our third year on. And, you know, in the past, this information was not public information, but part of the Teach NJ legislation involved that the state release this data. You know, which leads some people to make comparison between districts or between schools. And that, you know, I warn you that while people will do that, there's really, even though we may be using similar evaluation tools or the same evaluation tool for that matter, there are different people making those observations and making those judgments. And we work very hard. We talked about it today as part of our retreat, and we go over a redacted observation at every one of our leadership meetings so that we do have a common language. But to say that, you know, one district has all highly effective teachers and we don't is not what I would call a fair comparison. We have great teachers, and, you know, sort of our philosophy is the highly effective area is something you may visit or you may spend your whole career, but it doesn't mean that everyone is going to be highly effective, because effective, when you look at the rubric, is a very, very good teacher. And, you know, we can make the sports analogy. You know, Babe Ruth was highly effective for so many years, but at the beginning of his career and at the tail of his career, he was not highly effective. So, and I'm not saying that's how it is for teachers, because we have teachers at both ends of that time spectrum who are highly effective. But I will say we do look at this as very important, spend a lot of time on it, not just doing the observations, but as I said, working together to make sure that we're all doing a good job at it, and we're all looking at the same things and for the same things.
So I had a question, and one that came up was that the totals don't always
Right.
match.
So if it's under 10,
Okay, what's under 10?
if that area, either ineffective, partially effective, effective, or highly effective, if it's under 10, then they will not release that data, because it could be that it points to someone. Okay? It's a statistical thing.
Identifying individuals.
Right.
So that's
So
why-
how do we know?
Wait, wasn't the purpose
What?
to identify the individual?
Well, how do we know, Dan, what,
So here, for example, if you look at the Glenn School, all right, there are 6 certified teachers there, okay? And if you look all the way across, they're all NAs, because the N is below 10, okay? You see that, Vince?
At Glenn, are you saying?
Glenn.
yeah,
Another example, Hawes, all right? For Hawes Elementary School, there's a total of 29 teachers, all right?
That means
8 are missing, but they were either highly effective or partially effective or ineffective.
But they totaled 10 or less
Right.
because they were not.
The number.
They were in one category.
the under 10 rules applies to each one of these subsets,
Yes.
not the total school.
No.
So this limits the utility of this schedule significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it almost meaningless. If you, I mean, one
You
of
know,
the,
and I'm speaking for myself, to release this type of data is meaningless.
yeah,
we're not,
Not because some are missing, because just to look at this and try to make a judgment.
no, I
when
understood,
you
I
can't-
understood your whole point there too. What would be interesting to me is that after all of the incredible extra time we spent evaluating our teachers and observing the teachers and using the strong system, is the distribution of our teachers at the end of that in any way different, significantly different from what it was under our own evaluation system.
No.
No.
I would say no.
So that therein lies an interesting phenomenon. We spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to maintain this state mandate. To the credit of the administrators in the district, we have taken it seriously and did it as well as we possibly could and spent a lot of time and effort in that process. And at the end of the day, the data that it generated is probably no more useful than the data we had in our own
But
system prior.
we've always taken it seriously,
Yeah,
you know, so in that sense, this didn't like increase the importance for us.
right.
It did increase the number of times we had to see a
Right.
teacher.
Put significant time constraints on
Yeah, that's
everyone,
all
and
I'm
a
saying.
lot of downward pressure on
We took it
everyone.
extremely seriously before. We take it extremely serious this time. It's harder this time because it's so much more demanding.
Yep.
But the increased effort because of the new system,
Doesn't yield.
doesn't yield proportionately
Granular
increased
data.
benefit to us.
Yeah, and that's a year away, sort of that data to see what the 15-16 data is for statewide,
Yeah,
I'm talking, and what the impact is.
yep,
But that's making a huge assumption that things statewide or even nationwide are going to stay the way they are. I mean, that's part of the reason why this is doubly insignificant as far as I'm concerned, because we were doing all of this already, and now it's just a major time suck to get this whole
Yeah.
thing put together, and it doesn't give you any more substantial data.
yeah.
Internally, just a minute, internally, it gives us data to work with
But
and to.
they could change this whole thing on a whim.
No, this is
No,
state
this is-
data release, right? But internally, when you are evaluating your teachers, it gives you opportunities for conversation, to
Yeah,
professional development planning. So internally,
What
it
I'm
works.
saying is,
This-
we had that before.
Yeah,
the
And they can
incremental
change this
benefit,
Tomorrow, and
to me, the incremental benefit doesn't justify the incremental expense and effort.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's without benefit. I'm just saying that incremental benefit comes at such a high cost in terms of time and effort.
but the data, what I'm concerned about is the data's confusing. And I think I was hearing somebody somewhere was saying, they were using this as a percentage. And then looking at, the different ratings of the elementary schools and making some kind of a leap.
that this
About-
one's better than this
yeah,
one by this much
Because
percent.
you've got that many teachers in that
Right.
column. And so
Yeah.
this data as presented, I think, is confusing.
Yes,
This data is
Internally, I don't argue about we weren't doing or whatever.
right.
Internally, though, we already know, as with every job, an evaluation is an important component of it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
This data doesn't even add up. I mean.
It's not gonna,
Well, it should add the effective, the highly effective,
no.
as up to 419. The total is 423, but there's at least 6 under Glenn that aren't even rated. There's only a differential. Something's wrong here. Let me ask you a different question, rather than this data, which doesn't appear to be correct. How do we have a teacher that's rated ineffective is subject to a remedial plan that we have to work with them on? How many teachers across the district do we have subject to those kind of plans?
We'll have, no, for 15, 16, we'll have no teachers.
On
We have
remediation?
one?
We will have one.
So we only have,
No. We have no one on a corrective action plan.
so out of all of our 500 some teachers, which this also doesn't add up to, we have no ineffective teachers, which tells me that these teachers are all very strong.
It'd be all in one.
Or they've worked to get better.
Or they worked as, well, whatever they've done, they're now rated effective or highly effective, which means they're strong, regardless of their history, which is a very good message. These numbers that look fairly deceiving, but the message, the real takeaway is we have no teachers that require remedial plans under this rubric. which is a good message. It's a very strong.
And that's why some numbers wouldn't be there. Some impartially effective or ineffective would not be there because they're under 10
Right, but we don't have any that are on remediation plans,
for 15, 16.
which is good,
Yeah,
very good.
This is 13, 14 is what they're looking at.
Okay,
Mhm.
and this one doesn't add up.
I know,
Yeah.
it doesn't add up. That's
No.
why I asked Dan
Yeah.
to talk to us about it, because I couldn't figure out what was happening on this. This has nothing to do with the number of students in your class. That has to do with SGOs and SGPs, right?
right.
Okay. This has to only do with the evaluations that you're doing, and you submit some data to the state,
Yep,
correct on that?
it's pulled.
Pulled, okay.
And the state never pulls the wrong data, do they?
They would tell us. There'd be an error message. Right. Mhm.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Okay, comments from the public?
Charles Riley, 448 North Maple Avenue. I'd like to join the board in recognizing Michelle Lenhard and her many years of dedicated service to the excellence of education for Ridgewood's children. I had the pleasure of serving with Michelle for several years on the board, and as the board members have all pointed out, she was a very dedicated, well-researched, and person who would travel many miles and be involved in the statewide efforts in support of Ridgewood's children. I was always particularly impressed with her ability to reach out to the community, to try and involve the community in the activities of the board and the education of Ridgewood. Her activities on the curriculum committee, for example, and the formation of the community forums on curriculum each year were always a very well thought out and program that the community really was involved in and learned a lot about what was going on in the Ridgewood schools. And she was very instrumental in going forward with that kind of program. And she was also felt and knew the need to involve the board in the state activities and even federal activities and the effect it has on Ridgewood. And for all that, I think she deserves the resolution that you've passed today. And again, I want to wish her the best. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Charles.
Charles.
Yeah.
Nice look.
Okay, we'll go to consent agenda.
Yes. Like to present for consideration, A, attendance at conferences, B, administration, C, curriculum and instruction, and D, HR with the addendum.
Someone like to move that?
I'll move.
Thank you.
A second.
Great. Are there any questions on A, B, C, or D? Covered a lot of ground in that.
Yeah.
Um, The hiring is complete or almost complete?
Today, we will have one more.
Oh,
Yeah.
right, you had a resignation.
We have a few,
Yeah.
but they're extenuating circumstances.
But you did your teacher orientation, and
Last week,
that went well.
yes,
Yeah, very well. Really nice group of
Oh, that's great. That's great.
25.
25 new teachers this year.
Did you
Terrific.
say 25 or 45?
25.
25.
Yeah.
There.
Pardon me?
They made it 26. There.
Great. Okay. So there are no questions?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Like to present for consideration, e-finance.
I'll move that.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Are there any questions on finance?
No.
Nope. Okay, all right, I will trying to get to that place, sorry. I did want to read the, sorry. wanted to read the acceptance of the restricted donations. George Washington Middle School HSA for $30,000 to outfit new science classrooms. Pause HSA for $898 to purchase 2 wireless microphones. Pause HSA $4,222 to purchase auditorium chairs. Orchard HSA for $2,747.56 to purchase fans for the multi-purpose room. RHS Band Parents Association for $1,722.40 to pay the RHS Marching Band Camp Nurse Stipend. RHS Class of 2015, $2,400 to pay for the dumpster for project graduation. RHS Student Activities for $8,000 to purchase student workbooks for the World Language Department. Ridge HSA, $2,541.01 to purchase 3 classroom printers. Ridge HSA, $8,382.74 to purchase 25 Chromebooks and a Chromebook cart. And Somerville Hawes Dad's Night, $4,222 to purchase auditorium chairs. In addition, we accept a gift in kind from the Orchard Home and School Association for the replacement of plexiglass covering the Orchard sign valued at $387, and 2 art display cases for the front hallway valued at $4,391, and acceptance of a gift in kind from the Ridge Home and School Association of Read Aloud books for monthly rock assemblies valued at $970.38. Certainly a wonderful start to our year and generous contributions from so many of our support groups. Thank you. Are there any questions on finance? Sorry. No?
No.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Approval of bills? And
Okay.
that is Christina and Vince.
All right. Shall I go first?
And thank you,
Mr.
Vince.
Kraus?
You're listed first.
Thanks, Vince, for taking the extra month there.
I'm glad to serve. We have for approval Columbia Bank online checks numbers 70,445 through 70,572 in the amounts indicated on this form for normal payables. The next item is Columbia Bank offlines. There are 3 of these checks. They are in essence for dental benefits and a check from Microsoft to Microsoft. Is that a license fee for Microsoft? We also have Columbia Bank offlines. Excuse me, we have, Columbia Bank offlines in the amount of $2,025 for an IT license. Another one in the amount of $950 for a registration fee for a conference that we wrote a check quickly in order to take advantage of a discount. Columbia Bank offlines 38,060 through 38,061 in the amount of $298,815.63 for lease purchase arrangements. There is an item on here, a payroll transfer in the amount of $689,739.32. This is not a check, as we understand it. This is a system-generated payment, not an actual check being mailed out, to account for the automatic state aid deductions that the state pays to Bergen County Special Services for tuition for Ridgewood students that are enrolled with them. And if you have any questions on that, I would ask you to direct them to Dr. Aguilar. We have let's see, payroll, $689,739.32 for the period that ended July 30th. Check number 1214 to Pomptonian for food service. Avoided check in the amount of $510 for a payment that was incorrectly made and had to be reversed. And that's it.
Thank you, Vince. I second.
Alrighty, and I'd like to move the following. I'm going to go with the opposite end of the spectrum in my presentation here. August 6th, Columbia Bank Onlines for the amount indicated. August 13th, Columbia Bank Onlines for the amount indicated. August 19th, Columbia Bank Onlines for the amount indicated. We move down to August 5th, Columbia Bank Offlines, $48,023.68. August 13th, payroll transfer of $550,000, $551,175.69. August 11th, Columbia Bank wire transfer in the amount indicated. June 30th, Columbia Bank transfer in the amount indicated, and a June 30th Columbia Bank voided check number 70559 for $1,965.09. All righty.
I second.
Thank you, Sheila.
Mhm.
Yes.
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 Yes. Board member announcements. As we were approving the curriculum, I did want to reflect upon the couple of hours, which I know people spent a lot more time writing them than I did reading through the curriculum, though, on Rubicon. And I really want to congratulate the staff. I really focused in on some of the new courses, and they sound exciting. It's very well put together. You really have that pacing chart and topics to be covered and the essential questions. And well done this summer with our administrative team really pitching in there to supervise and oversee the work that was done. And then the rest of the all the curriculum we are approving with those addendum. And if I'm correct and I understand, the addendum is something that the state has helped with to enhance and make sure that everything is compliant to the standards, or have I missed that?
The state allowed us to do it that way. They came out with the 2014 standards last July 2014. That's when they adopted them. They sort of pushed them out to us in the spring with a mandate that we rewrite all of our curriculum. And if you look in Rubicon, there are about 1,200 of them. To be adopted, newborn on dates in every single content area prior to September 2015, which clearly is an impossible task. And so a number of curriculum people from around Bergen County, at meetings, we decided that would be done through an addendum. A number of people got together and worked on a template that would be acceptable. And then we used that template to write our addendum. So that, but it's already been approved by the county and the state that will be adequate for making all of our curriculum born today, as though they were all brand new curriculum. This is our born on date in terms of CUSAC for every single curriculum document we have.
I got it. But really, the work, you can see the work and the thought. I was interested in thinking design? No, what's it called?
Innovation through design
Thinking, innovation through design thinking. Thank you. That was really an interesting course outline and what the expectation is for students, the American experience. So really good work done.
courses.
Yeah. Again, you sort of wish maybe you were back in school, but then, then I don't know if I get through the college application process and all that. So, right. In any case, it was well done. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan, for leading that too. And then just a couple of things. We are looking forward to welcoming back our staff on Monday, August 31st, for convocation. And the school year begins with students coming
September
September
2nd.
2nd
Mhm.
on Wednesday at the appropriate times, high school, middle school, and elementary school. But yes, the summer went fast. It's, wow, school's already here, right? And I know that there was a lot of work going on here at the Ed Center all through the summer, so congratulations to you. Just on the legislative side, there's really not a lot happening. There is some waiting now for some of these education task force that were established by the governor. And so we are still waiting for the task force final on special education for their final report. They've been looking at funding of special education and also best practices. We are still waiting for the task force on state testing. They missed their final report deadline, which was the end of July. The task force continues to meet and is reviewing its recommendations. And a new task force is going to be established, and that was signed. A bill was signed by Governor Christie last month, I think it was, to establish a task force to study later start times for public high schools. And that will be an interesting report when that comes in. And all of the difficulties and all of the time constraints that students have to have a later start date, a start time, and then, assuming the same number of hours in school, a later end time, but then what happens to after school activities and maybe work, or maybe needing to get home and babysit or pick up a sibling and from elementary or middle school. So not an easy task.
It's nearly impossible, because I was speaking to someone whose district had attempted something like that. And what it ended up doing was making kids stay up later at night, doing all the things that you would normally do after 3 o'clock.
Mhm.
When that all got pushed back to going to bed. I mean, I know that there are times when kids are going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, but that would become the rule because they were starting a little bit later in the morning. It's a fairly negative spiral, I have to say.
Oh, yeah,
Really,
it is a spiral. When
Yeah.
you think,
Yeah,
just
really.
in this municipality, if something starts later, ends later for us, and someone else was supposed to use that facility, then they're going to start later and maybe end later, and they might be younger kids.
Right.
Or, what you said about kids picking up, if the high school is going to start later, it means someone else, because we tier our buses, the same buses used for 3. So someone's got to start earlier. So it's really a challenge.
Very much so.
Interestingly, I saw in the paper that our district was considering changing.
not everybody does.
No, considering looking at it, and that's what Tom's going to do, and look at it.
Well, then you layer on that some of the experts saying teenagers need 9 hours of sleep at night. And we all could use a little bit more sleep, I'm sure. But I don't know, judging from my own parenting, short of chaining my children into bed at 10 o'clock at night, I don't think they got 9 hours of sleep every night. Nor are they as workers
Exactly.
in the workforce. So,
Right.
Mhm.
But there is something to be said
There
for going
is
to bed
bed.
before 2 o'clock in the
oh,
morning.
absolutely. It's a balance.
For a
There's-
child who's, 18 and under.
Yeah, there's always a balance here. So anyways, it'll be interesting. I'll look forward to seeing that report. Does anybody else have any announcements or? No? Okay. We have a committee report. Thank you. Finance.
Yeah, I distributed the finance committee report this time. This time Jennifer was kind enough to give the current report. Last month we got the previous month report.
It's okay. It's always good to reaffirm.
Yeah, make sure that we're on task here.
Mhm.
Looking at you, Jennifer.
Okay, comments from the public? Seeing none, okay. Discussion items, board goals. So here's just the draft. I don't know if you brought it, so I just drafted some. That's for discussion. Find sometimes easier to have some wording in front of us, but as we've been, we've looked at the year, Dan has also indicated in our FYIs, some of the goal areas that are, some have started to be worked on, and some are, still needing work. So that first one is about the question that had come up during our community planning sessions. Also, we've heard it from parents, and that is the, full day kindergarten. And there's a lot of pieces to that. And as you know, Cheryl has established a committee. That was last spring. You've met once, I think, and I know as part of the curriculum committee, Vince,
Yeah.
you were part of that.
Yes.
Tonight, we appointed or approved a consultant to take a look at enrollment and facility and space. So, beginning to collect some data, and I think that is as a result of some of the committee work that's happened.
That's not specifically for kindergarten enrollment, though, or for full-day kindergarten. I mean, that's district-wide enrollment in terms of,
We're looking at everything,
Yeah.
but the impetus for hiring him was that study.
Yeah.
To look
This
at
is
the
the kind of-
facilities and the projections all the way up.
Yeah, two of the,
Since we're hiring him, he's doing more than just that.
right.
two of the key takeaways from our August meeting, the two key deliverables for the September meeting were,
For the August meeting?
well, we met in July. June, we met, God, you talked about summer going fast.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, June meeting.
Yeah, we met in June. But two of the deliverables were to get a very preliminary financial estimate from Dr. Aguilar, and the principals of the schools were going to do an analysis of what they thought the facilities requirements will be. So, I mean, we're going to get some of the broad parameters relatively early on as we go through this process, hopefully.
And people are writing surveys in between. The homework was, we had a number of subcommittees, and they're writing surveys for all the teachers and administrators, and a survey for the community with some sort of a strategic way to also survey people who don't have children in school in
Because
terms
that's
of
a very key
their
component.
sense of the importance of that. And just so we had a sense that if we needed to do a second question, what a vote might look like. on that.
So the work is underway for this, and all that data and the consultants report about enrollment, and although it's not just specific to kindergarten, it's district-wide, and sort of what we're going to, to the best of your ability, what we're going to look like over the next 5 years, is collecting all that data will come to us, and at some point, we'll have to decide to try to move ahead or not, and that's what this goal is about, so.
Dan, can I add, the contract with the Ross Haber Associates to do this demographic study is a good idea, because we right now, we have not got that kind of forward-looking modeling built into our system. You look at.
We do a 5-year cohort. We do that yearly.
Mhm.
This is, we do that internally through a spreadsheet that we have, but this is an expert who does this as far as demographics and facilities, and he's done this. He did it for Glen Rock and other districts who.
What I'm pointing at is, we do it ad hoc in district, the kind of thing you're referring to.
Yep.
You've talked to us in the past about looking at the the birth rates in Valley Hospital is one of your indicators, and the housing sales. This is something very useful that would be, is the study that he's doing something that we could continue, we've continued on for multiple years after this report. It's something that I think would be very useful in the planning process overall for us to have an ongoing, rigorous look at what the future looks like. And as I understand, this isn't a particularly expensive approach. That said, I'm concerned about the looking at kindergarten. I think we have a broad idea of how much the costs are in general terms. We know what kind of financial obligations we'd be undertaking. And I'm concerned before we get too far down the road with the committee and everything else that we haven't looked at where the funding is going to come from. We have a proposal for all-day kindergarten, which makes a lot of sense from an educational standpoint. It's one of the most effective things, I think. All-day kindergarten and preschool are very effective ways of giving kids early learning development. And I appreciate the fact that we are one of the few districts around that only have a half-day kindergarten, a partial little thing. But our budget is very tight, and to add $1 million+ for a all-day kindergarten without funding, I'm not quite sure how it would work. And I'm worried that we start the conversation with the community before we have a plan for how we're planning on funding it. And I really would like to see the goal that we set when we get around to setting it be much more specific as to develop a plan for funding and the broad parameters we already know, what it's going to cost. How would we accomplish this? Rather than trying, we can establish pretty easily the efficacy of doing this. It's a good idea from the standpoint of the children. But how will we finance that when we're dealing with a 2% hard cap on our budgets? We're dealing with a large block of our costs going out in the contract we're going to be doing with the REA. We have a large cost for the healthcare, and we have a large cost for special education and custodial and other things which are outside of our control. So how would we factor this in? Should be the focus of this board, I think.
I think it is. I think we're collecting, I think that's it, right? We're collecting data, and with that data, we'll have that information.
What you're talking about is collecting data to finalize, to become more finite as to what it's gonna cost it to be. We have a broad number. How would we find $1 million+ to do that? That's the question. Very simple question I would lay before this board and before the public. How do we find $1 million+ to do an all-day kindergarten, which is a worthwhile project? And all the stuff you're doing, it's good to support that, good to plan it, and do all those kind of things. But unless we have a path that we can determine that we're going to finance it, it's not particularly useful. And that's my concern. Our focus of the board should be, okay, how do we find the resources? Where can we look for the resources? I've heard the second question idea, but I've also heard that's probably a non-starter given the history of second questions around the state. If that's the way we have to go, how do we make it work? How do we get the community behind it? If there is some other thing we could do to fund it, let's start discussing it. But simply to study it, we can study it all we want. We can devise a beautiful plan, but it's not going to work unless we have the funding. And that's one of the board's primary roles, is funding.
Are the other studies available to us that the Haber group has done before? Because you mentioned Glen Rock, and I know that they voted down, and then within 24 hours, they voted for full-day kindergarten. I don't know where they found the money in between those hours.
Yeah, if you look at Glen Rock's budget, they spend quite a much more per pupil than we do, and they told they found it within their budget by eliminating some positions and through breakage and things like that.
Are those reports accessible to us for comparative purposes to read?
That would be through their board. That wasn't part of his report. He doesn't say, get rid of this. And
I guess I'm curious because I don't know what that magic number is going to be, Jim. And I don't know whether full-day kindergarten, if there's a possibility of phasing it in, if you can do it over a course of a few years, if you could add 2 full days and 3 half days and then build it. I mean, I think that there are some things that we have to understand. Are there facility needs? Are there supply needs? And yes, certainly funding is part of it. And you can reword the goal. The goal has the board looking at the funding also. To me, there's some unknowns here. So I think that we need some data in order then to go to the next step to say, okay, this is a plan. These are ways we could do it. Maybe there's option A and option B. I don't know. I'm just throwing these things out. And if that's the case, then these are the costs. And then we come back and say, okay, how do you finance it?
We have a rough idea of some of the things. We know that there are approximately 20 kindergarten sections, Dan.
Right now?
Yeah, I think that's about
Yeah.
maybe give or take one or the other. We double that, we need 10 more teachers.
Doesn't necessarily work that way because you have some 0.5s. And yeah,
Roughly.
I haven't looked at it to
Well, roughly,
do a guesstimate.
if you take a half-day session and make it full day with the same population, you're going to double the number of teachers you need. And you have about 10 teachers assigned kindergarten. We've gone through those numbers. We looked at the schools that were under pressure. So you add 10 teachers, and 10 teachers with benefits, a rough basis is about 65, 75,000. That's 750,000 cost for teachers, including their benefits. You add some things for classrooms, and you put a minimal number on it, $250,000. You're looking at $1 million worth of expense. That's a starting point for the discussion on the financing. I'm interested in the idea about phasing it in, Sheila. That's a good idea. That's a financial consideration. How do we make it work within the budget? Where do we find?
Well, that's why I think we need our professional staff to begin to look at this. The committee, I think, consists of administrators, teachers, and parents.
Well,
or
we have
not?
parents.
Oh, okay.
A number of parents actually who were really helpful at the meeting. And we have administrators and principals, central office administrators. We could not get any teachers to join the committee. I'm hoping that will change this year, that we'll be able to bring some teachers on, but it was not happening then because of what was going on. And one of the things that we are looking at is what other districts are doing and how they're funding their kindergartens and what their models are. Because there are numerous models. Like there are some models that are, like Sheila said, some half day, some full day, sort of a melded program. People who want to stay later in the day can pay tuition for later in the day, so you can do some enterprise. I mean, there are lots of models that people are using out there. So but we have to investigate that.
Okay.
So is there agreement that this will be a board goal? The concept of collecting the data, having it reported to the board, and some decisions will be made. Now, whether in fact they'll be made by the end of the school year or not depends upon how much.
Our hope would be to have a presentation for the board in the spring, May or June.
Oh, that late. Okay.
So the wording at the end of this
Hopefully
is,
earlier, but we're giving ourselves that.
Yeah. Okay.
the wording at the end of this, Sheila, is that
Yeah, by the end.
we will make a decision on providing full service. I might want to say we'll make a recommendation, because it may not be a decision that we can make without public support.
Okay. I guess when I looked at the word decision, I was, whether the board is supportive
Yep.
of it or not,
Yep.
but recommendation is fine. Okay, the second one had to deal with the facility study that AI, right?
EI.
EI. I'm sorry, EI. EI did for us. And they reported in July, and now what to do with it. So I think, there's a number of things that need to happen with that in terms of carefully going through it, evaluating it, prioritizing, and then, again, that whole decision making of to finance, how to finance it, how to move forward on some of those systems. So is there?
How do we do that? And how do we actually prioritize, how do we convert the report that the EI gave us to an action plan?
I think we would do that through the facilities committee, in concert with their manager of facilities who knows every, nut and bolt in the place. And then, bring forward a recommendation to the board.
Then this study, as it is, doesn't actually include a pretty good level of detail on the projects, and also a designation of a priority. So in essence, this seems to me to be our goal is to simply review what that committee did and alter it if we, based upon our judgment, it should be altered. But in terms of the dollar amounts that they have identified, and in fact, the very items themselves, I can't see how we can do better than that, because they are the experts. That's what
They've laid it out on a good timeline. Now, how do we convert that to a board calendar, and how do we set it up? That's staff work.
Yeah.
Our goal should be, to review it and develop a refined timeline.
And EI may be able to assist us in that, I would think.
What we did, when we were doing, looking at the high school, at that point, our engineer and architects came back with, a list of many things that they saw. But again, I saw them refine it to health and safety issues as your first priority, and then second priority, third priority. And then when we had gone out for the referendum and we were looking at the total district, we also did that again. And you keep refining it to see, really what are the critical things that you're going to do, or, in a world where we had capital monies in our budget, we were able to then sort of say, we can do this year 1, 2, 3, but this is a $40 million worth of projects all together, whether every project has to be done. And I guess I do want to also, last time we did pick the brains of some of the people who work with our heating system as to the payout in terms of, does it make sense to replace, or is our maintenance enough? How long will they last? Again, it's a little bit further conversation.
In terms of health and safety, they had indicated to us that it was remarkable how the condition everything was in for the age that it was in, and that there were no health or safety issues in any of the buildings.
So the bulk of their stuff was recommendations on how we could be more efficient on systems.
Absolutely, and that's further refinement, but it is a very large chunk of money if you were to really go through the entire thing, and that dovetailing with the first goal is, that's a big nut right there. That's a very difficult thing to sort of mesh together.
Right.
But I mean, I have to say that when I got that report and reviewed the report, I was actually quite thrilled and pleased at the degree of detail and the timing and the specificity of it. I really felt it gave us a tremendous amount of traction, and it opened our eyes to the necessity and a clear understanding of what's necessary. What we're really saying here is we're going to now build on that and move on it, so that it's not just a study, that it will result in an action on our part that will
Yeah,
result in a perhaps a referendum, almost undoubtedly.
Because our goal last
Supporting
year
it.
was to have the study.
Yep.
And now, what are you going to do with it once you've done it? So,
One of the things I'd like to ask, well, the study is an excellent study, and I agree with everything you said about it, Vince. It really lays out a roadmap of the kind of things we're concerned with. It validates our maintenance plan that has kept the facilities in top shape. This health and safety issues are marginal, and they're basically upgrades from already safe condition to safer condition. One of the things I'm also interested in is not in that report, because that report was a report on our existing plant. Is there anything else we should be thinking about that isn't in our existing plant that we need to add? We did the last referendum, we added some things. We added the second gym, or third gym, second gym at GW. We did some wonderful things with library facilities. Are there anything beyond simply maintaining the existing facility we should think about? Because from a public standpoint, getting them behind a referendum, doing maintenance and doing the nuts and bolts of the systems that only Steve has seen the inside of is not as sexy as some of the other stuff and some of the things that people expect from Ridgewood education. So I'd like to know how we approaching that, how we thinking about those ideas. That's something that's beyond.
Are you
just-
talking a field house and a swimming pool? Is that what you're going for?
I'm not
What?
proposing. I'm just
Or a
suggesting.
performing arts center.
Performing Arts Center, yeah, sure, all of those things. Sounds great. And full day kindergarten.
Yeah, I want to do that under the bond issue too. Funded with-
And security things that they brought to our attention that I think are probably preeminent on a lot of parents' minds.
so that's why we have to really
Yeah.
carefully look
It's
through
a
it.
lot to,
And I think there is some prioritizing of it in terms of this community, in terms of what our professionals in the district feel, and some of the consultants that have been working with us over the years. So I'm hearing support for,
oh, sure.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
Absolutely.
It's a very good goal.
Yep.
But I
Okay.
like what Jim said.
Oh.
In addition to looking at this, which is in essence, keeping our current plant, if you will,
are there other
modernizing it and keeping it up to snuff, it'd be kind of interesting as well if we had some kind of exercise. If you could say, let's say finance wasn't a constraint. What do you really want to add to the quality of the district? For instance, performing arts center or things like that, just so we have some idea of what.
I guess Christine heard that before you said it, because she was talking about a field house and a swimming pool, right?
Perhaps. I mean, that's always been bandied
So I think-
about
I
out
think-
there.
I think then it's not only prioritizing the facility and looking and reviewing that, but it's also, questioning whether there are other needs within the
Yes.
district.
Right.
Yes,
That's the prioritizing
Yes.
of all of
Yeah.
those.
Yes.
things. Yeah.
thank you. That's saying it in a much better way.
Number 3 then is, the continuation of our negotiations with the REA. And
I know we're not.
we are
really
in fact finding right now.
I know we're not actually discussing wording, but I would make it a more positive statement than hoping for that.
Okay.
And also, I wouldn't say that we hope of getting it approved this school year. I'd just say as quickly as possible.
Okay.
But the goal nonetheless.
Yes.
The goal is something we have to do.
Pardon me?
We have to do it. We have to conclude the agreement. We have to get to a final agreement. Whether it's this year or the future, we have to get it done.
Okay. And number 4, we embarked on this really big initiative last year, the one-to-one Chromebook initiative at the high school, and now we're moving it into the middle school. Last year, I felt through presentations to the board, your FYIs, information that you gave to us, we had and what students reported, we had a good sense of that initiative and how it was happening. And this year, I think our goal is to monitor how the rollout and implementation professional development goes for the middle schools, and what happens year 2 at the high school?
Mhm.
You know, do we see a greater use in the instructional program? We had a great buy-in by teachers last year, and I know that the professional development this year has, again, continues that with our teacher coaches. And you had a Google workshop up in Ramsey again this summer. I don't know how many attended, but.
We didn't have the same numbers as we had last year, but we did have.
But you have work going on in your professional development.
Right.
We did work on June 22nd. That's what we did with that day.
Right.
We're repeating some of that work on September 1st. And it's interesting when you look at the people who have registered already for workshops on October 12th.
Mhm.
Many of them are advanced topics in computers. So they are moving, they're looking at it sort of as an example, Pear Deck, which is a piece of software teachers really like. It's on the Google platform. The workshop on for advanced users is very popular.
Oh, great.
So yeah, people are up there these days.
And, Vince and I had the opportunity to go to the parent training, and I haven't seen your calendar yet for curriculum workshops this year. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to do more of that, but the parents that I spoke to that attended those workshops that were held were very grateful because it made a little sense to them, and they could see what their children were doing. So all that helps too, I think, in the implementation. I was, and I know you'll be reporting in September on the results of the survey. Again, quite positive feedback on.
Either September or October, I have it on my
Okay.
board.
But the positive feedback from what I can see on the one-to-one initiative.
Oh, yeah.
From the parents' perspective,
Mhm.
are the children using it? Are they using it at home? Has it been a benefit? And it was a high percentage of parents.
Yeah, I thought it was very positive.
Yeah. So all of that was great data. I hope to see a similar information come this way with the middle school. And that was what this goal was about, so.
Shelley, your goal implies that the data that's produced by the superintendent, are we producing a lot of data? The survey is nice. It's a kind of a touchy-feely type thing. It's not real data per se. We're producing data. how
We're getting it
utilized
from the
is-
building level, like a sort of a pre-post.
Mhm.
What are they seeing in the beginning of the year? What are they seeing later on in the year? Through direct observation, through lesson plans and things like that.
So I'd like to see some hard data. We've done a review, and I think it's a wonderful program. I think it does credit to Ridgewood to have it. But I'd really like to see some data as to how many classes it's into, how many teachers, what's our acceptance. I remember Ryan used to talk about the 20% tipping
Yeah, I
point.
think in one of my goals, I had the hard
Yeah.
percentages
Yeah,
You did.
in the 90 percentile.
okay.
Mhm.
That's the kind of thing I'm interested in monitoring next year rather than the generalized presentation we're doing here for.
We also did a principal building goal in both middle schools and the high school this year in student achievement, and it was based on technology achievement in students, pre and post tests. And that is, so those goals are usually something that I report on when I report the data from our standardized test scores. So we're pulling that all together now.
Okay, good.
Great. Okay, so those,
Oh, no, what I was going to say before also is that I noticed in a lot of different ways, the community school is doing a Google thing for parents also, if anybody's
Oh,
interested.
that's
Yeah, we
right. I
started
did
that
see
last
that.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah, they did
Yep.
one last year.
Yeah.
And in fact, they did one last year on the same night we were doing one, and both of them filled.
so there's definitely interest.
That's great.
there
I
for
forgot
parents.
that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so those 4 goals then are good.
Well, I'd like to recommend another goal, which we overlooked, and that's a financial goal. We don't have any true financial goals for the operating side. We have one for the capital side. I think we should be, as a board, giving Dan and the staff guidance as to what we expect out of the budget the next year, what kind of levels they should count on from a plan to for things like the tax increase, which is the basis of our revenue. We have set it at 2% based on state cap, but I would like to, as I've mentioned a number of years, like to set a lower goal and then discuss why that isn't adequate and then add things on top of it. So I'll be proposing a goal, a fifth goal, if you will, on financial goals for the district in the next fiscal year.
So I'm not sure I understand what, I mean, you and I have talked about this. We're talking about the budget calendarization process as a means to identify areas where we can review and influence the budget on a relatively frequent basis prior to the time of the first roll-up of the budget.
And I've suggested a tool in the past to set a cap other than 2% on what our revenue expectations are. We've discussed perhaps there are other ways of achieving the board's involvement, and I'm happy to work with you and come up with a proposed goal that meets all of our needs.
So
Because it seems to me that as we wrapped up last year, and it came up in our board evaluations, that there was a concern that last year there was less involvement by the board in sort of those pre-steps, in formulating and crafting that budget. Certainly, Dan, you recognized that and said, this year we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to involve. I felt very helpful last year were our small group meetings that let you really ask all the questions. And then, of course, you can do it again here in public, but sometimes one-on-one or two board members with Dan and Alfredo worked really well to help understand. And then you, as you come to the board table, you're really more grounded. And so I thought that was the discussion we were having is developing a timeline and a budget calendar that was more inclusive of the board participation.
Well, and that it would start a little bit earlier, but we did also discuss and have discussed on numerous occasions, sort of having a baseline ceiling if it is workable, at least to have a number that we're going to say we're going to try to build the budget more in advance with a little bit more participation. And granted, the participation last year was wonderful and all of those presentations were great and helpful, but I don't think we really did adhere to what we discussed, which was having sort of a ceiling to work under, instead of assuming the 2%, to maybe start with 1% and see where we get, especially when we're contemplating things like full day kindergarten and a $40 million, facilities review, to see if maybe we could keep that a little bit smaller and have that tax increase a little bit less painful. I mean, it's just a thought to try to keep it,
But don't you do zero?
to not assume 2%.
We do, but if we it's zero based, but we don't, it's always above, so we cut back too.
Yeah, because when you put in increases, it could be above that 2%. We've seen that year to year. So,
The way to approach this, I would suggest, Jill, is let me work with Vince and see if we can come up with something on a financial goal which makes sense.
okay, and why don't you bring it back then to the September meeting?
Okay.
We'll go ahead with these 4 goals, and already some work has started on that. We'll start with a facilities committee meeting, and school will start, and we'll be back to work. Great. Okay. So financial goal will be the last goal. I think we did that last year. We'll just carry that over until September, and we'll put that under discussion items for September.
Okay, good deal.
Okay? Thanks.
Yes, thanks.
All right.
In the meantime, you're going to sort of wordsmith?
These.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
the
Okay,
things we talked about. Yeah.
right.
Yep.
I don't know if I made careful notes on them. Had you made some careful notes? Oh, great. Okay, I did some notes, but.
Me too.
Acceptance of minutes, the July 20th meeting,
Mhm.
I move acceptance.
right?
I will second that.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. We have no other business that I'm aware of, no executive session, so I move to adjourn the meeting.
You know what? I did have one quick question.
Sure.
When we were approving donations, and there was it $40,000 for GW science rooms?
30.
30,000?
Something, yeah.
Is that's just GW specific? We're
Yeah,
not-
that's their HSA.
Their HSA.
Mhm.
And what does that include for them that would not sort of translate to the middle school on the other side of town?
Well,
Or why that wouldn't be necessary?
I was going to prepare something for either the next board meeting or the next FYI.
Okay.
What we're purchasing with the foundation grant are microscopes for both buildings, and right now some tables for both buildings. The buildings wanted different types of tables, so and the foundation gave us the authority to allow that to occur. So that's what that 85,000. I was going to have an accounting of it for you and for them.
And then GW is adding additional.
But that's additional funding for GW
Yep.
science?
That comes from,
That is not necessary at BF, or just that?
It's based on what the buildings feel their needs are, okay? And we said we would be back to the foundation once we went through our science curriculum review process, where we may need things for
And
both buildings.
Does BF know what GW's plans are?
Yep.
I mean, that they would be-
Absolutely, and they're both fine with it.
this 30,000 is also raised by the GW
HSA.
HSA. It's not coming out of the district's funds. It's supplementing what the foundation has given.
But the
Correct, I
foundation, the
understand that,
foundation
but-
85,000
Right.
is specifically for GW.
And that's been split between the two
No,
disproportionate.
the 85,000 is not just for GW.
No, it's
split
for
between-
both.
GW and
Are
BF.
you,
The
Okay.
85 is for both, and
check
then
out,
this is
check out the
30
transfer
in
report,
addition?
Alfredo, because I think that said GW. I'm pretty sure it did.
I don't have it on me.
I think we actually discussed it. It's a different amount for each one, but the total is 85.
Yeah, just check that out because I thought that was specifically for GW in the transfer report.
Take a look at it.
Okay.
No, it's for both. The money from reps.
It is.
I'm
it
not-
is,
I'm
but
not
that-
saying
he's
it isn't. I'm
Talking
just
about
saying
the
that-
financials,
So
and some
I'm
might
just
have been
wondering, how does
transferred
that
into
all
accounts
GW
so they can pay for it.
Check it out. You know, I was just looking at the header on the transfer report
Yes.
and it did mention GW.
Does not.
Yes, so they need more in order to catch up.
Okay.
The parents are supplementing that.
Were there any other questions?
No.
Our next meeting is, which will be, you'll have an opening of school report?
Yep.
All that.
September 21st, I believe.
Yes.
September 21st. So it's a long spell between meetings. On Thursday, are we still going on a
Yes, we are.
Facilities walkabout?
facility? And that's at, I know you sent it to us, but,
I was curious about that also because there was a request to come up to the tennis courts, I know at 8:30 on Thursday morning to, they were having a little get together and they wanted whomever could come to,
8:30.
yeah, it's at
No, let
8:30.
me check.
Okay, so maybe you could just, I hate to add to your,
Well, I sent it as an invite.
okay.
I know, and I didn't have the time either, but I thought it was around the same time as,
I think it's later because I usually like to
in the afternoon?
get my, nah, I doubt it's that late.
I think it's 10 o'clock, but let me,
Oh, well, that would work.
summer projects.
Hold on.
Are all of us going?
If you, oh, it's 9 o'clock.
9.
We meet here at 9?
Meet here at 9?
27th, this
9:15?
Thursday.
Meet
9:15.
9:15.
9 here at 9:15?
Yep.
Yes, okay. That's
9:15 here?
9:15.
Are you
Here.
doing the tennis courts
Yeah.
at 8:30?
When it goes to-
9:15, right out front.
on the
Okay.
27th.
Try to remember to bring the van.
We won't fit in the little convertible.
You're kidding.
Okay, so,
Keep the roof down. just
meeting is
pile it.
adjourned.
Okay.
All in favor? I think we did this
Aye.
before.
Aye, aye,
Great.
gotcha.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.